I'd just like to welcome everybody out from this wonderful, beautiful day, Sunday here at the West Valley Center for Spiritual Living. Reverend Karen is all hyped. She is hyped up back there, so you guys better just get ready for yeah, so whenever she comes out, you guys, here she comes. So we're going to get started with the song just called as This Is the Day. So please rise and join in if you'd like. Ready? All right.
This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Sing that. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is a day to be seized, yeah. A day I can feel my spirit setting free. Yes, this is the day. It's time to fly higher and high up in the sky. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day all my dreams come true. Feel the Spirit working its way through. Yes, this is the day. It's time to fly higher and high up in the sky. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it.
Good morning. Welcome to West Valley Center for Spiritual Living. My name is Reverend Clyde Goins. I'm the assistant minister here. I want to welcome you all here on this beautiful Sunday morning. So I hope you guys, it's been really cold for a while, and so we've had a couple of like really beautiful nights. So I'm hoping that you're getting out there and spending some time outside, enjoying that nice cool breeze in the evening. Last night we went walking around in the neighborhood just because it was so beautiful outside. So hope you are enjoying that as well. So anyways, we're here on Sunday. We come together every Sunday to remember our truth, that we're whole, perfect, and complete just the way that we are. So if you're visiting for the first time, we want to welcome you and to our center. We have refreshments afterwards, so please stay for refreshments. We have a thrift store that everybody likes to shop in. I always have to throw that in there. So you can also visit that after service as well. And I think that, we do have one really important announcement is, again, we have our carpet is going to be installed at the end of the month. We've been working on this. So this is our last major up improvements to the building, I would say. And so we're going to replace all of this carpet, but we need your help. We need your help on the Sunday. What is it? I think it's the 28th, the last Sunday of the month. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to move all the chairs after we eat, of course. We're going to move all the chairs out of the room and everything out of the room. And then again on Saturday, if you're available on the following Saturday, which I think is the 5th, we're looking for people to come in and help us put the chairs back in the room with the new carpet. And John has figured out a way to move them by the dolly, so it's going to be really easy. We just need people help us get it set up. So anyways, very, very exciting. So we've made all this transformation. We painted it. We've decorated the corner over there, fixed it up. Now we're going to get the new carpet. It's just a beautiful space with all the lighting. So we have really beautified this sanctuary, and I'm really happy about it. All right, so let's start off by saying our vision statement together. We are a loving, joy-filled community, honoring the many paths to God as we learn and live the science of mind principles. All right, and so Julie has one quick announcement that she wants to come up and share with you.
All right. This announcement is for the ladies, so gentlemen, you know, do whatever you need to do in the moment. You have about 30 seconds. Imagine you're a goddess on the mountaintop, burning like a silver flame, the summit of beauty and love, and Venus is your name. No, it's not just a cheesy song from the 80s. But it can be your reality if you join us at the Women's Weekend Retreat, May 5th through 7th in Flagstaff. Come to the mountaintop. Our theme this year is connecting with joy and love. We have planned 2 full days of relaxation, pampering, and self-reflection designed to help you reignite your passion for life and empower the goddess within. This transformational retreat will feed your soul with joy and fill your heart with love through connection, spiritual practice, and soul work. Full retreat details and registration forms are available now at home space in the bookstore and on our website at wvcsl.com. Registration ends next Sunday, so register today and get ready to receive the gifts of the goddess in this very intimate gathering.
Thank you, Julie. All right. So now, if everybody can just sit back in their chairs, relax, open up your hearts and minds for the Bradford's beautiful music and Reverend Karen's beautiful message. Thank you.
So just take a deep breath as we go within.
I will make a quiet place within my heart. I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord.
Be still, my soul, be still. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still and know.
I will make a quiet place within my mind, and I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord.
Be still, my soul, be still. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still and know.
I will make a quiet place within my life. I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord. I will make a quiet place.
And here in this moment, where our souls have become still, where we have moved into that space of knowing that that divine wisdom that lives and moves and has its being in each of us, in everyone, everywhere, that power and presence that is peace and joy, love, happiness, harmony, wisdom, clarity, kindness, compassion, prosperity, health, and so much more. I know that that is the power that is in charge here in this day and in every day. I know that as we are here, we open our hearts, we open our minds to hear the beautiful message that Reverend Karen is bringing us today, that is through her internal guidance system, that allows her the wisdom of the divine to move easily through her. I know that Bradford's music, as always, lifts us and opens us, and that each of us here feels the connection to one another, whether it's here in this room or listening online, that this day is an exquisite idea in the mind of God, and that we feel that connection, and we know exactly what we need to do. So I give thanks. I release this out into the beautiful synchronicity that is both love and law. And together we say, and so it is. My reading today is from A New Design for Living. It's one of my, really, it's just a delightful book. If you don't have that one, it's a worthwhile buy. It's called God Within. Since there is but one life, present everywhere, I must be in that life and of it. And it must flow through me. It must be what I am. Therefore, I accept this omnipresence as something real, definite, immediate. At the very center of my own being, I realize the divine presence. At the center of my own consciousness, I recognize a transcendent principle forever renewing my being. A divine presence forever animating, sustaining, vitalizing, and recreating. A divine consciousness forever guiding, directing, inspiring. There is within me that which knows what to do and compels me to act in accordance with its perfect law and order, and its complete peace. This I accept, and even as I affirm it, I know that this omnipresence is alive, awake, and aware within me. So allow yourself to feel that alive, awake, aware presence of the divine. So it is.
It's a beautiful morning. I think I'll go outside for a while and just smile, just digging some clean, fresh air. No sense in staying inside if the weather's fine and you got the time. It's your chance to wake up and plan another brand new day. Either way, it's a beautiful morning. Each bird keeps singing its own song. So long, I've got to be on my way now. No fun just hanging around. I've got to cover ground. You couldn't keep me down. It just ain't no good if the sun shines and you're still inside. Shouldn't hide. Seems to me that the people keep seeing more and more each day. Lead the way, spirit guiding every day. Ooh, sing that with me. Ooh, one more time. It's a beautiful morning. Thank you.
It is. It is a beautiful morning. It is an exquisitely beautiful morning. And look, it's even more beautiful now with all of you. Good morning. It's so wonderful to see you. Happy to be here myself. I'm Reverend Karen Rice, and I welcome you to the West Valley Center for Spiritual Living. And this is our Sunday morning inspiration service where we get together and remember the truths that just help us feel uplifted and reinvigorated to do all the things we need to do for the week. Before I start this morning, I have an interesting announcement that will pertain to those of you who have been a part of the community for a long time. There's something you need to know. There's a change happening, and though I can't imagine how we will maneuver through this change, our admin assistant, Cheryl Copper, has decided to retire. Oh, no. Yes! Yes! And I have been here 12 years and not worked without her, so it'll be a challenging transition for me. You do know her replacement. One of our practitioners, Kate Fontana, has agreed to take the position, and she's been training last week. And so the most important part of this announcement is we will celebrate Cheryl at a future date. But she's not going anywhere because she is a licensed practitioner here at this spiritual center. And if you've been wondering why you get to see her sitting up front, it's because she's not really working anymore. So the important announcement is please don't ask her to do anything for you. If we don't have toilet paper in the bathroom, you need to tell Reverend Clyde. Because Cheryl doesn't care anymore. It's not true, but I also know Cheryl, and she will keep working if we don't let her off the hook. So be loving and kind, and let's acknowledge her as a congregant who can just sit and be appreciated in a brand new way. Thank you for your years of service. Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting adjustment. For Cheryl as well. It would be a little hard to sit here and not work when you're used to being, Sunday's usually a work day for Cheryl. I am talking today about something that I feel really excited about. The title of the message I took from a quote from Dr. Ernest Holmes from the book, Can You Talk to God? And of course you can. Anybody can. But the title of the message is Your Guiding Star. And I had this idea that I wanted to present a message, a place where we can just talk about that way that Spirit supports us and guides us and directs us, and how we can tune in and align ourselves to it and really use that power that's greater than we are. So, yes, indeed, there is, as you know, divine guidance in this universe. And sometimes Dr. Holmes and other great metaphysicians and deep thinkers would refer to that as the divine influx of wisdom. Now, I like that statement because we talk often about knowing that there, even in those times where you think you don't know what you need to know, that there's a wisdom in you that does know. Something in us knows that we know, and we can tap into that. And spiritual teachings of any tradition actually will help us learn to be more effective at doing that. And so we are talking about staying open to that divine guidance. And by the way, Dr. Holmes, when I looked it up in the glossary of the Science of Mind textbook, Dr. Holmes defined that guidance as the inpouring of God's blessings. And so what I want to say to tie it all together is that I like that idea there's an influx of wisdom. So we get it, that there's a wisdom in us that we always carry. It can be ignited, we can remember it, we can tune into it at any time. But when I add to that additionally there's an influx, it's like the mind of God is an atmosphere that we're always encountering. And if we recognize that it's not just that we have to dig some wisdom out of us, but that there's a constant influx. We would say there's this outpouring of grace, the givingness of God, and that's why Holmes says it's the inpouring, I love that statement, of God's blessings. That's the grace. That's the natural givingness that we cannot stop, but we can forget to be the vessel to receive those blessings. And so this talk today is about reminding all of us to be aware and to be open and to expect that guidance and to know that there is something we can consider our guiding star. Let me read you the quote where I took the title from. Dr. Holmes said, "Spirit is one, not two. It is perfect and it is whole. Feel it express itself directly through you. It is your guiding star in every enterprise." Isn't that fabulous? I love that. I can hear Reverend Cheryl right now from a distance. Amen. That was good, you guys. We can imitate Reverend Cheryl. It takes more than a couple of us, though, to get up to that volume. She's so good at amening. So, yeah, thanks. There we are. So, spirit is one, that there's something whole and perfect about that idea of that guidance that's always available to us. But here's where Holmes takes it the step further, and I like this about deep thinkers that are willing to talk in this kind of language. He says, feel it express through you. And that's what I want to talk about today. This morning, I think this is a glorious way to begin a Sunday morning, especially, you're so right, Reverend Clyde, the weather has been so luscious. But the theme that I'm working on with us all year is that we are remarkably made, and we are made to be remarkable. And so as we look at ideas with this great simplistic approach that like we're doing this morning, we get this idea, the guidance as to how to allow that remarkability to be apparent in our own living. See, we're created in the image and the likeness of the Creator. You know what that means is that we are creative beings by the nature of just being a part of humanity. And so it reminds me that I want to be open to that creativity. I want to be open to that divine influx, to that inpouring of those blessings that we're talking about. Because as Dr. Holmes so perfectly stated, and I'm going to reiterate a couple times today, we are alive with God. We are alive with God, and we are saturated with divinity. Now that's luscious. So this teaching, this spiritual philosophy, all of these things are very important basic themes that get us going. This is a part of our declaration of principles that I'm going to talk about a little bit today. This is the primary premise of why we exist as a spiritual faith. We are divine stuff, and it's so important to review that, to remember that we are God's stuff. There's the divine DNA is the intelligence that keeps us living. And the next step of that is that not only are we divine and just so incredibly made, but there is something that is even greater than we are in terms of this power that sustains all of life, and we can use it. Now, every faith tradition has its own interpretation of that idea of one God, of one mind. When Holmes says spirit is one, not two, it is a perfect whole. Every religion has some variation of that. In Buddhism and Hinduism, they talk about the ultimate reality. We talk about an infinite intelligence. We talk about an all-knowing presence that inhabits absolutely all of life in every way. And sometimes we talk about God as an infinite mind. that created all of life. So these are really universal ideas, and that's really what the founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, was all about, was looking for those mutually same universal truths. And in fact, Dr. Holmes often said he did not desire ever to start a new religion. He knew that he was really good at synthesizing the great truths in all faiths, that he could see that slice, that sliver of truth that leaps and laps and connects every spiritual philosophy. And I'll tell you, that is one of the key reasons I was drawn myself to this teaching. New Thought takes these ideas a little further than a more traditional a religious view might be, in that there is a challenge to us to not only intellectually understand all that stuff I just said, but to feel it. To feel it. To feel that aliveness. We are alive with God and we are saturated with divinity. Feel that. And so, ministers and teachers and spiritual leaders are always looking ways to evoke that sense of feeling within you, so that you can leave with a little something you didn't have when you came in the door. So, I love that idea that there's some way that we can have our hearts touched when we gather in spiritual community. I love especially, one of my favorite parts of this, and I love that it's in our vision statement, in our purpose statement, we talk about honoring all paths to God, that there are so many different ways to honor God, and that we can come and sit in a sanctuary. And that my first foundation class I took in the very early 1990s, there was a Catholic woman who had just come from Mass, there was a Jewish woman who went regularly to temple, and there was a Muslim man who was totally devoted to his faith, but they all gathered with us once a week for the education, for the upliftment, for the way we could bring together our different ideas and honor each other in a gorgeous setting that welcomes, desires to be welcoming to all people. Obviously, it's not welcoming to everybody, but it could be. You know, I loved especially that we didn't just quote the Christian scriptures. I love that we acknowledge all sacred works. I love that we acknowledge those great thinkers that contributed to literature, and the founding fathers who were deeply spiritual, and there are just no boundaries. So those are things of great appeal, especially as we're living in changing times. In my own journey, I was a very devout Bible student in a very fundamental Christian faith, and I loved knowing the Bible so well, and I loved the black and white teachings were so. I loved to be able to reason on spiritual matters, but there came a point in my own personal growth where I longed for more intimacy in a personal relationship with the divine. I longed to know a different side of God that wasn't so Old Testament, kind of judgmental and fiery and angry, you know. I longed for something that wasn't quite as fear-based as what I was immersed in, or at least in the way that I was interpreting what I was immersed in. And so I did make a major change and left a fundamental lifestyle, a religious lifestyle, and did not really ever want another church or another religion. In fact, I vowed I would never put my name on a membership card. And then I fell in love with this teaching and wanted to be a practitioner. And, you know, in order to be a practitioner, you got to sign your name somewhere. Begrudgingly, I did. I wasn't thrilled about it, and I dragged my feet for a long time before I was willing to do that. But what I remember about those early days was how exciting it was to start considering a different approach to spirituality. How I didn't understand any of the languaging, oneness, and what do you mean I'm perfect? You know, it's like, I don't feel very perfect, and what the heck is ultimate reality? And every time they would talk about consciousness, I would think, well, they're so arrogant. What does that even mean, you know? What is mysticism? And now those are all terms that I use so often, and I'm really self-conscious that some of you are out there thinking those same things I used to think. Like, why do you got to talk in a different language? You know, why can't we all just have something more comfortable? So I'm aware of it, and I really do intend every so often to deliver a message that isn't full of stuff that new people might not understand quite in the way that we use terms. But what I know I needed and wanted in my life most was that idea of a guiding star. When Holmes personalizes it so much that he says, your guiding star? I mean, that's pretty personal, you know? It's like, you mean there's something in the universe that cares about supporting me? You know, that I matter? That maybe I can align my life to spiritual truth, and that I too can help make a difference in the world? That thrills me. I feel so satisfied when I'm living my life on purpose, and I don't feel like I have to be the person out there fixing everything broken in the world. Right? I found a spiritual philosophy that allows me to grow, and it gives me more than just my humanity. It gives me this intimate connection with the divine. And you know what? It might not be for everybody. Some of you may not desire that. I notice that people who really are drawn to the scientific side of what we teach, the way that we do a beautiful meld of science and spirit, that you will be, those of you who are more science-minded, will be less attracted to the mysticism side of our faith. And the mysticism side is what I'm talking about when I'm saying you feel it. When Holmes tells us feel it, you have a guiding star. Tune into it, align with it. You know, get your energy shifted about so you can relate to it and use it in a better way. So, this works for me, but beyond the intimacy and the mysticism of it, the part that works for me is that I wanted to feel less afraid of everything in the world. I found, it makes me laugh now because it was like the early 1980s when I left fundamentalism. Boy, the world got a lot scarier after that. But the faith that I belonged to depended on all of those signs of what was happening in the world that would validate we were living in the last days, and that was scary. That was scary because we knew we were at high risk, and we would use all those scriptures about, Jesus was crucified and all that. So, of course, that's behind us now. Easter happened, and we're free. We're liberated. We're raised, and and we can move beyond that for a little while till the next holiday. But I loved all those scriptures that said, the strong ones, like there's one in Isaiah that says, I'm strong in the Lord and the power of his might. I'm strong in the Lord and the power of his might. And those things used to help me feel like I could face whatever it was I was afraid of in the world. And then I began to court spirit in a new way, to develop a more intimate relationship and to understand, this is one of the greatest gifts of our teaching, is that we have such an emphasis on a power and a presence that is greater than we are. I am not all that God is. I'm pure God stuff, but I'm living this human journey in a human body for a reason. And there is still this essence of life that is God, that created all living beings, that is greater than I am. And I can learn to understand it and interact with it. And it's not a man on a cloud somewhere with a clipboard. It's so much greater than that. So we begin to take the humanity away from our image of what God is, and we now see that to be strong in the Lord is to be strong in the law, to be strong in principle, in what you believe, and the way that we can approach applying spiritual principle in our own lives. Pulled out a old favorite book of mine that I haven't looked at in many years, a Marianne Williamson book. I started with Marianne that was how I found this teaching. And I pulled out my book called Illuminata. She published that book in 1994. And it's a book of prayers, and she prays in a very unique way. And it was comfortable for me because it wasn't quite a 5-step treatment. They're a little more personal than the way we teach affirmative prayer, and so it was a good bridge for me. And the prayers in that book are designed in categories to help us deal with some of the things in life that frighten us, or the ways in which there is sometimes we bump into that feeling of hopelessness. And the reason we bump into hopelessness is not because things are hopeless. And if you believe they are, just come a little more often. I'll try and change your mind about that. I think that was an amen from Reverend Cheryl. Thank you, Reverend Cheryl. I think that anything we do to help ourselves get out of those pits that we fall in are important things to do. Now, here's the way Dr. Holmes always referenced it, and he's not alone. Many of the great physicians, metaphysicians, including, how much I love Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. He used the term, I'm not sure how to say it, noosphere, Noosphere, and he was using that in the same context that Dr. Holmes and Judge Troward would talk about the consciousness of humanity. Holmes called it race conscious, meaning the human race. Jung would say the collective unconscious. There are lots of ways of saying it, but the way I envision it when I read Dr. Holmes is that it's like this dark cloud of everything everybody worries about. It's all the negativity, and because it's negative, it's heavy and it drifts down. But Judge Troward was the first to say that if we pray, that when we pray, we are lifting our own consciousness above the 51% mark, and we are no longer down here a victim to that dark cloud of negativity. So I pray every day religiously because I want to be above average. I don't want to be stuck in everybody else's what they're worrying about. Now, sometimes those worrying thoughts wake me up in the middle of the night, and I don't know if they're my thoughts or the world's thoughts. But you know what I do know? If I'm awake in the middle of the night and I can't get myself back to sleep, and I notice that this thought leads to that thought leads to that thought, and none of them are very positive, then it's time to pray. And I believe it's the world calling us to prayer. It is a call to prayer. And then I found this quote from Marianne Williamson, and this is just such a perfect reminder. She says it so well in her book, Illuminata. Either we are slaves to the fearful mental patterns that dominate the world, or we are consciously taking part in the counterforce to the world's despair. Either we are slaves, you feel that fear, and it's that dark cloud. She actually says the fearful mental patterns, it's an atmosphere of thought is what Holmes would call it. You think, you have a certain way you think in your life more than any other way, and most of us, this teaching helps us notice how often those are negative thoughts so that we can evict them. She says, you are either slaves to those fearful mental patterns, those patterns of thoughts that dominate the general collective consciousness, or you can do the opposite. You can be conscious. You can choose to be a part of the counter force to the world's despair. I want to be a part of the counter force to the world's despair. I want to contribute something good to the world. You know, we did that 40-day fasting from negativity. I'm so happy that there were so many of you. I enjoyed so much holding your commitment cards in my hand every day and praying with you, knowing that you were joining me in fasting from negativity. And it didn't mean, I know I got some interesting calls and texts from you and emails. You know, it didn't mean that you wouldn't have those negative thoughts. It just means you're going to be more aware of them when you have them, because you made a commitment to not have them. So you can evict them. You can turn your thinking around in the 40-day. It was such a great a way of giving you a tool right there in your face as to how to turn your thinking around right then and there. So I like this. I don't want to contribute to the sadness in the world. I don't mind being sad when it's appropriate for me to be sad or to grieve or to feel an experience of loss or disappointment. I don't mind doing that. I like being real, and I encourage it, but I don't stay there, right? And if I do feel stuck there, I call a friend, and I get some prayer, and I use my tools to be to find my guiding star again so I can be lifted from it, because there is a power that is greater than any of that negativity, and that power is for us. It is the way the universe supports all of life, and we witness it every day, and it's so useful to appreciate how incredible that power really is. Let's talk a minute about the Declaration of Principles. How many of you know what that means if I say declaration of anybody? Thank you for your honesty. It gives me worth and meaning to tell you what it means. The Declaration of Principles is simply a series of statements that describe everything we believe in this philosophy. And the way it came about was, I want to say it was in the 40s. Maybe it was earlier than that. You're a longtime religious scientist. Do you remember? Some interviewer, somebody writing an article on Dr. Ernest Holmes came up to him and said, you've published all these books, and you give these great lectures, but it's also heady. Can you just tell me in a few words, what is it you actually believe? And so he wrote these statements that he called what I believe, the what I believe statements, and through the years we have changed them and we call them the what we believe statements. And if you take the magazine, if you ever look at the Science of Mind magazine, if you don't, you ought to peek at it because it's good. But I wouldn't be without it. But we publish it in the front, almost always in the front of that magazine. You can find a list of those 11 statements where he tells us what we believe. Now, it's written in the original language of the way that he wrote it and spoke it. So it's cumbersome to understand. However, and that's what we call our Declaration of Principles. That is the Declaration of Principles, those 11 statements, what we believe. However, through the years and through the evolution of our organization, we have simplified them by making them spiritual principles. And Reverend Clyde, you did a dynamite job in January. Reverend Clyde did 2 Sunday services back to back that covered the basic principles. He gave you half one week and he gave you half the next week. And I don't think I've ever told you this, but I have had such positive feedback from this congregation as to how much that meant to them. So these, what we believe statements are those principles, but they are in their original form. Now, the reason I tell you all that is because the one I'm talking about, we're talking about your guiding star, we're talking about that intelligence in the universe that guides us in an exquisite way and is always available to it. And this is how Holmes originally worded it. The highest God and the innermost God is one God. Now, some people try and correct that and make it are. The highest and the innermost are. No. They are, but it is one God. And that was how he wanted it. The highest God and the innermost God is one God. And that God, hang on, is personal to all who feel it. Right back to the beginning. That God is personal to all who can feel and sense that indwelling presence. And then he goes on and says, and those who live in close contact with that indwelling presence become revealers of truth. That's a statement. See, now that doesn't mean you're a prophet. That doesn't mean you got some new psychic ability because you've been contacting that indwelling presence. He's saying that indwelling presence, the more you feel it, the more you sense it, the more you relate to it, the more you commune with it, you will become a revealer of truth, and then you're not going around speaking prophetic words of wisdom, but people are watching you. And they are seeing that something's changing in your life, and you are showing them how to do it by your example. You are a revealer of truth simply by the nature of aligning yourself to it. Amen. Thanks. So, can this knowledge, can this awareness help us in our day-to-day living? Damn straight. Yes, absolutely. It's the whole entire point. And how to use it is a little trickier, so I thought I would trivialize it. Please don't be offended. I usually go really deep. I'm going to go really simple here, because I want you to have something to take home today, or for those of you at home sitting in the comfort of your own homes, you have something to hang on today, and I want you to practice this today before the day ends. We're going to make it real simple. Let's say you have a decision to make in your life. We have decisions every day, don't we? We have decisions every day. We have many decisions we make every day. And you come up against a couple of choices and you have to move yourself through them. And sometimes they feel kind of heavy, like, oh, if I choose that, it could take me there, and I'm not sure, Sometimes they're big. One time I had a job opportunity. My whole life, I had 4 kids, and so I was one of those tortured moms. I was tortured with 4 kids when I stayed home too long, and then I'd go to work, and then I was tortured because I felt guilty because I wasn't home with my kids. So I always worked a couple, 3 years, and then I'd stay home a couple, 3 years, and that was their life. One time I decided to go back to work, and I thought, I'm going to do something fun. I had a medical office background, so I knew insurance billing. It was easy to get work, and I thought, what would be more fun for me than being offended by some of the ethics that I see in medical offices? I used to be so judgmental. Oh, I still am. Still have all those opinions, I forgot. But anyhow, so I saw that there was a listing for a couple of chiropractors, and I applied for both jobs, and they both wanted to hire me. And so now I've got a dilemma. I got to choose. Do I take this job or do I take that job? Pay was pretty close to the same. It was in the late 80s, and so I hadn't dabbled in this teaching yet. And so I made a list of the pros and the cons, what would be good for me. And I knew that the chiropractic was appealing because I was an old midwife. I had all the old childbirth and natural stuff I loved. And that would align to my, my liking, my what was important to me in life. I even drove from my home. One job was in Diamond Bar, that direction, and the other job was in West Covina, that direction, and they were both exactly 7 miles from my front door. Nothing helped me make that decision. So I was like, what are you going to do? And I took the wrong job. I took a job that didn't turn out to be a very good fit for me. Now, I was a young woman then. I was in my 30s, I guess. Was I still in my, I don't know, whatever. I was much younger than I am now. And I knew immediately it was not a good fit, but my work history is that I do not leave. I'm loyal, and I stay a long time. Sometimes that's not good, but I'll stay because I'm loyal and I'm committed, and I got all that. That's why I was married for 50 years. He left me. I lost him somewhere in the shuffle last year. And so I took this job, and the ethics of the business, the way the business was handled, were rubbing me the wrong way. And I stayed there for a couple months, and the other doctor called me at home one day and said, "Hey, I just thought I'd call and see how that job's working out for you." And I went, that's interesting you would call because it's not as good a fit as I thought it was. And I ended up leaving that job. It was such an important lesson for me to learn that you can, when it's not right, get out. Don't keep doing it if it's not working. So I left that job and I went to work for this really cool guy who taught me so much. And by the way, I did learn some skills at that 2-month job that were really useful at the new job. It made the new doctor think I was even smarter than I was before, because I didn't know that before. So I never looked at it as a failure. It was one of the first times in my life I saw, man, life is really overflowing with opportunities for us. Can you see that? You can see that you go in one direction and it looks like it's not working, but you can change your mind. And so there's an element of trusting the process that I began to wake up to. There's a way to trust the process. I found this quote from Walt Whitman this week. He says, sometimes we have to be willing to surrender ideas when the evidence proves they are wrong. Right? So we're really moving along on a certain idea, and sometimes the best choice is to surrender that idea. Maybe the other job was the better choice, right? He says that's what keeps us moving forward, our willingness to let go sometimes. And then this is beautiful. Life has an affection for us. See, life supports us. Life is for us. Life has an affection for us, and it gives us a chance to try over again when things don't work out. Right? That's such a gorgeous way of looking at my own learning curve in life and how we all maneuver through those things. So, and I also wanted to add this one little point that kind of reasoning where I made the list of the pros and the cons and I drove out the miles and I'm trying to examine it all, I want you to realize that that's not following the guiding star. That's trying to reason, and and there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's very valuable, and this teaching supports that kind of thinking. But what happens when we get to reasoning on the facts is that the ego can jump in. The ego will jump in because you're building a case, and the ego will help you align to your already existing confirmation bias. And you're just doing the same old thing. So it's tricky to know, is this the voice of that indwelling wisdom, or is this my ego? And you know what I like to always remind you is, a wise person said to me many years ago, the ego always speaks first and loudest. So what that means is you need to pull away sometimes. You need to take a breath. You need to give yourself some space and remember, and in fact, begin to affirm that you are divinely inspired. This is not egoic, that there is a power greater than that egoic voice. And we can align to it and we can use it, and there are so many ways we can do that every day in our own lives. I found this quote. A few years back I taught, Nancy was in that class, Advanced Science of Mind. Remember that class, Nancy? We had a really fun time. And in that class, I had this idea that we should read the general summary in the textbook, in the Science of Mind textbook. And I really turned me on, and we did it over like 8 weeks or something. We just read a few paragraphs every night. I think that was how we started each class. But they were much deeper topics than I realized. And yet, I think I just quoted from this chapter recently in here. It comes to me again and again. There's so much rich information. And I found this. This is so fitting for what we're talking about today, because the topic is, Holmes says, when you don't know what to pray for. People come to me often and say, but Reverend Karen, my life's going pretty good. Why would I pray today? I've got everything, You want to pray to get above the 51% line, get out of the fog, And so when you don't know, or you have a situation in your life and you just don't quite know what to pray for, page 400 in the Science of Mind textbook, Dr. Holmes says, if you don't know exactly what to pray for general success. In whatever you attempt to do, pray for yourself for guidance into the knowledge of that which would be best for you to do. And then down toward the bottom of the page, he says this. Listen carefully. This is quite good. All subjective decisions are merely conclusions built on already accepted premises. Confirmation bias, what you already believe. Remember, all the brain studies show us that your brain is going to prove to you what you already believe. It's not necessarily right. All decisions are merely conclusions built on already accepted premises, on accepted ideas, or the thought patterns that have been moving around in your brain. And the conscious mind can change these thought patterns and thereby cause a different flow of energy. You can change the energetic of your thought. You can change the patterns of your thought. And what does neuroscience tell us now? With all these new brain studies that are all the information coming out, that it's not easy, but you can actually change the neural pathways as though they actually like carve out new ways of being, new thought patterns in your own mind. This is valuable information. And then he says, when in doubt, when you're doubting your ability to use the law in the ways that we're talking about today, we should again remind ourselves that it is not I, but it is the Spirit of the Father in me who doeth the work. And this will straighten out your thought and place us again on the road of faith and understanding. My favorite way of making a quick decision. If I just don't know, I get out a coin. And I'll tell you something. If it's a simple yes or no, even if it's a big decision, when I'm getting ready to fling that coin up in the air, I know immediately in my gut which way I want that coin to land, right? And if you know which way you want the coin to land, you don't need the coin. Go with the wisdom that's in you. That works for me. Might not work for everybody. Your ego might overpower you. But it's always a start for me. I swear, every time I said to Hugh, should I wear this or this? And I could see him looking and really thinking and, of course, probably wondering what the right answer was. You know, I would know immediately what I was going to wear, and it wouldn't matter which one he said. I would get the clarity out of the question. The answer would come. So there is a wisdom in us that knows, and the takeaway for you today is this: you are remarkable. Don't ever let that voice in your head talk you out of knowing that truth. You are remarkable because you are saturated with divinity. You're alive with God, and something in you knows that. Dr. Holmes said, affirm that the answer to every problem in your life already exists in the mind of God. And right where you are is the mind of God. Do not deny this. And so my closing words this morning are words that I have taken from one of my favorite quotes from the Course in Miracles. And this works for me. If you have a more scientific mind and you don't relate to the mystic stuff, it might not work for you, but listen to how beautiful these words are. Imagine being me and loving them. Imagine God is speaking to you right now. If it helps for you to think of me holding your hand and leading you, then I assure you, it is no idle fantasy. One mind, one ultimate reality. You get to translate it in a way that works for you. It is ever present. It is greater than you are. And when you are in contact with it, you are personalizing it. You are using it. You can expect it and you can allow it so that you will never feel lost in this world. And that's what I wanted to say today. Just take a breath. Take a holy breath. And feel the love of God in this room. How sweet it is to recognize the holy presence of Spirit. To remember again that right where we are, right here, wherever we might be sitting, where we are breathing in that divine inspiration in the sacred space that we create with our intention. We can feel and sense the activity of life within us. I feel that love within me, and I sense it moving about this sanctuary. I know that it is the vibrancy of all of life, and it is the essence of every living being. That this planet is saturated with that divinity in the same way that we demonstrate that intelligence in our own bodies. The wisdom that beats our heart, that blinks our eyes, that circulates the blood through our entire system, so that we can understand there is a law of circulation, that there is give and there is take, and there is times to receive and there is times to be active and to do. we feel the essence of life as a part of the allness of our very own living. And so I know that the words that have been spoken this day, both simple and yet complex, come together to bring a very personal message to each ear that has heard. That we take these words and we are able to use them in such a way that we can begin to sense the healing in our own bodies, the vibration of the vitality of life desiring to express itself through us in every element of our living. The love that heals our relationships so perfectly. The substance that supports us and directs us and fuels and funds us. The way that we can see the exchange of goods and money and love and caring and kindness, and all of it is a part of the main theme of life. That we are connected to each other, that we are one with this gorgeousness that is God, and that it is good to feel the fullness of spirit within us, the activity of life that desires to express as us. So I say thank you, God. Thank you, life. Thank you, infinite spirit. For we are so grateful to be lifted from the fog, to rise above the average, to know that this life is not hopeless, that there is an insistence that we go on and that we thrive and that there be joy on this planet. And so it is with a very full heart that I give thanks. I feel that gratitude resonating as a powerful energy in my body, and I let it be. I release it, and together we say, and so it is. Amen. Amen.
The joy and peace that gratitude brings, that's why I'm grateful, grateful, grateful for all the love that I have. I am so grateful, grateful, grateful for all the love that I have.
All right, thank you, Bradfords. We are grateful. And so now is the time to celebrate the abundance of our community and the abundance of our lives. While I'm thinking of the abundance, Mary wanted me to remind everybody that everything in the thrift store is half price. So you can have an abundant home by going there and shopping. All right, so we are celebrating the abundance of our lives as we move through this day. So let's say our giving affirmation together. I live in a consciousness of good. Divine love blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, and so it is. So I just want to remind you that we're not passing around the offering plate, that we have drop boxes in the back of the room and in the bookstore for your donations, and we greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Please rise for our last song. problems. I'm living now. I'm living now. And I ain't gonna worry about the future. I'm living now. I'm living now. So put your hands up if you feel like having a good time. Put your hands up if you're sharing love with all. And raise your cup if you're hopeful for tomorrow. Put your hands up if you're ready to have some fun. Now sing it. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live in the moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live in the moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live in the moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. One more time. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. Woo.
Oh yes, it feels good to be alive. I just want to let everybody know that if you feel moved to move, then move. All right, that song is a dancing song, and I'm always looking back over at my dancing partner Janice, and she's always standing there with her hands behind her back, and she's not going to move, and I wait for her, and it slowly comes out, and then she starts going at it. So just let it go, because that is a wonderful song. All right, so let's say our closing affirmation together. I am open to Spirit's guidance. And know all, and I know all my answers come from within. And so it is.